Look at the image currently on your screen. Analyze this impossible, jarring juxtaposition. On the left side, our primitive nomadic ancestors, barely surviving the brutal Ice Age. On the right side, Pillar 43, a mathematically aligned monolith weighing 20 metric tons. Do not just see a carved rock. See the sudden, catastrophic failure of history. For over a century, our academic textbooks have preached a comfortable, linear human evolution. We were told that humanity first figured out how to cultivate crops and domesticate animals. Then, supported by stable food supplies, we invented writing, wheels, and monumental architecture. We believed large-scale engineering strictly required complex societies, royal power, and written blueprints. But geographical coordinates, 37.22 degrees north, 38.92 east, disagree. This dusty ridge in Turkey is coordinate 0, the ultimate anomaly of our past. It violently sets our comfortable history timeline on fire, forcing us into the smoke. This ancient megastructure was not built by a grand, technologically advanced agricultural empire. It was constructed by nomadic hunter-gatherers, people wearing raw skins without metallurgy. These prehistoric builders did not plant a single seed of domestic crops or wheat. Welcome to the anomaly that permanently shattered modern archaeology, anthropology, and global history. We must strip away romanticized jargon and face this strictly as a cold engineering problem. This incredible construction site is carbon dated to approximately 9,600 BCE. This architectural masterpiece is 11,500 years old, defying known human limits. To the builders of Giza, Göbekli Tepe was already more ancient than Giza is to us. We are staring at a statistical impossibility, built when material physics should not exist. The complex consists of interlocking circular subterranean enclosures, each mathematically defined and planned. Each enclosure is anchored by massive T-shaped limestone pillars set precisely into bedrock. Let us look at the raw physical data of these titanic monoliths. Let us slow down and examine these staggering parameters very closely. The primary central pillars tower up to 5.5 meters in height. Their massive structural weight fluctuates between 10 to 20 metric tons each. They were quarried and transported from bedrock, located hundreds of meters away. And they achieved this monumental task using absolutely zero metallic tools. Carving a massive monolith using flint stones is a mechanical and geological nightmare. One single mistake would shatter the entire 20-ton mass under its own weight. Preventing structural fracture requires an advanced, intuitive understanding of material shear stress. Moving 20 tons without wheels, axles, or draft animals defies spatial physics. Static friction would immediately crush non-hardened prehistoric timber rollers into fine sawdust. Yet, these ancient people successfully transported and positioned dozens of these monoliths. They erected them into perfectly upright positions inside precise, millimetric bedrock joints. The engineering tolerances here are incredibly, terrifyingly precise for a prehistoric era. Here is where modern physical reality and academic theories collide with violence. Academic bias long assumed that prehistoric humans lacked advanced cognitive executive function. How could minds, supposedly driven only by survival, organize such grand structural logic? The layout of Göbekli Tepe is not a series of chaotic circles. If you connect the exact centers of enclosures B, C, and D, they form a mathematically flawless equilateral triangle, with practically zero variance. This proves a centralized master plan was established before any stone was quarried. They understood advanced spatial geometry and trigonometry millennia before the invention of rulers. Observe the complex artwork. These are not primitive flat drawings. These are high-relief carvings, requiring the removal of entire background stone layers. To create this, the prehistoric artists had to visualize complex negative space. But there is an ultimate biological paradox. Who fed this massive workforce? Hundreds of builders working for decades would hunt local game to total extinction. Without agricultural food surplus, supply chain logistics would collapse into pure starvation. Yet, this structure exists, defying the thermodynamic and biological limits of its era. But everything we have discussed so far exists purely on the visible surface. This visible structure was merely a distraction for historical researchers for decades. They classified it as a static temple built to appease forgotten cosmic gods. Recently, geophysicists deployed advanced high-frequency ground-penetrating radar to scan deeper. They aimed deep radar frequencies past the excavated stone floor into the bedrock. The returning radar telemetry came back entirely distorted, defying all expected geological profiles. The frequencies were hitting deliberate, massive, artificial voids and subterranean structures. When researchers mapped this deepest core with 3D lasers, they found a structural anomaly. It was not just a ventilation system. It broke every law of thermodynamics. It was a biological lung, breathing entirely on its own. Look closely at the topographical telemetry now illuminating your screen. The deep limestone voids beneath coordinate 0 are not random excavations. They are lined with a naturally occurring, yet artificially manipulated, microprism mechanism. The original builders deliberately aligned and sheared the microscopic crystalline structure of the bedrock. They exposed specific quartz and calcite matrices at highly precise, mathematically calculated geometric angles. The deep limestone voids beneath coordinate 0 are not random excavations. This is the complete weaponization of passive thermodynamics. Geothermal heat rising from the Earth's deep crust violently collides with these angled crystalline facets. The microprisms concentrate this thermal energy, creating highly localized microvortices of air. This architectural manipulation generates an engineered temperature differential within the solid stone itself. A localized high-pressure zone immediately adjacent to a low-pressure void. The entire bedrock matrix acts as a colossal, self-sustaining thermal engine. It aggressively, forcefully exhales stale, heated air out through narrow peripheral exhaust shafts,
while simultaneously inhaling cool, dense atmospheric air down through the central megalithic enclosures.
They did not just dig a hole, constructing a macroscopic respiratory system with 0 moving parts.
And they stole the blueprint directly from nature.
The fluid dynamics here are an exact replica of the colossal Macrotermes Michelsoni mound. These giant termites engineer towering biological chimneys that flawlessly regulate internal temperatures. The architects of Göbekli Tepe observed this mega project, reverse-engineered its principles, and scaled it up. They bypassed the entire agricultural revolution and leaped directly into advanced biomimetic engineering. Modern humanity operates under a profound delusion of technological and architectural supremacy. When contemporary engineers face climate control problems, our default solution is brute force mechanical aggression. We sever ourselves entirely from the natural environment. We inject millions of megawatts, deploy toxic chemical refrigerants, and install heavy compressors into our glass skyscrapers just to maintain a fragile, artificial atmospheric equilibrium.
We spend billions of dollars actively fighting the fundamental laws of physics.
The Paleolithic architects of this megalithic site did not fight physics. They synchronized with it. Here is a mind-bending fact that completely shatters the illusion of modern engineering dominance. In 1996, an elite global consortium of contemporary architects spent over $35 million, backed by advanced computational fluid dynamic software and supercomputers, to construct the Eastgate Center in Zimbabwe. Their primary objective? To flawlessly replicate the exact passive cooling biomimicry of a termite mound. They ultimately and catastrophically failed in their passive cooling attempt. Despite decades of subsequent research and billions of dollars in global funding poured into synthetic materials, modern science has never successfully built a purely passive, self-sustaining biological lung on a macro scale, without ultimately relapsing and relying on supplemental mechanical fans. Yet, over 11,000 years ago, a society classified by academics as primitive nomads engineered a vastly superior, entirely autonomous biomimetic HVAC system deep inside solid bedrock. They achieved a permanent, flawless internal temperature stabilization of exactly 62 degrees Fahrenheit. They maintained this absolute equilibrium without a single watt of electricity.
Whether the surface above was enduring the blistering, arid heat of a Paleolithic drought,
or the freezing, desolate nadir of an Ice Age winter night. But we must ask the most terrifying question of all. Why? Why did hunter-gatherers need to perfectly regulate the atmospheric baseline of a deep subterranean void? The lazy assumption is basic survival, a crude bunker built to hide from cataclysmic climate fluctuations, triggered during the catastrophic Younger Dryas impact period. But the volumetric data and the microprism angles suggest a purpose far more profound and unsettling. This microprism mechanism does not merely regulate temperature, it perfectly calibrates atmospheric density. Stabilizing the internal air pressure transformed the entire cavern into a flawless, macro-scale acoustic waveguide. If a biological lung breathes, it also resonates. The massive T-shaped megalithic pillars on the surface were not decorative standing stones or primitive idols. They acted as external, geologically grounded tuning forks. when fierce winds of the Turkish plateau struck the precise geometric edges of these surface pillars. They captured acoustic vibrations and channeled them directly down into the pressurized subterranean lung. They engineered a localized resonant chamber capable of generating sustained infrasound. Frequencies sitting below the threshold of human hearing, proven to induce profound physiological trauma.
Severe spatial disorientation, and violently altered neurological states in the human brain.
We are forced to stare into the abyss of our own historical ignorance. The comforting, linear timeline of human progress is a complete fabrication. Click the video on your screen to uncover the secret humanity cannot replicate.